Hello and welcome to this lecture. Today we are going to discuss an important topic, and I can say that this is the summary, or we can say that we have discussed a lot of topics regarding different substances and their abuses, and I discussed during my lectures about how can we prevent, and we already discussed a lot of topics regarding this matter. So this topic is about actually how to prevent the substance abuse, and we can say that we need to solve the problem. We all know that the drugs are not good for the health. We have discussed several topics regarding several different kind of substance abuses. We have discussed different classification of the drugs that talking about different abuses. Either we're talking about the opioids, or we're talking about psychoactive drugs, or we're talking about even the drugs that has been used for cough, such as cough syrup as an abuse. So we have discussed a number of articles regarding these matters, and but now what we are going towards the end of our course is how we prevent that substance abuse. I wish that I could split this video into subsection, but due to some technical issues I have to make one video, but let's see how it happened. Right now I'm making this video as one whole video. If I able to upload that video as one video, then it's okay, otherwise I will split up into subsections. The nature of the topic is such like that I have to split, but right now it is not possible because of some technical issues. So let's discuss this topic, and the topic outlines. When we take a look of the outlines, what we are going to discuss today, we will discuss about defining goals and evaluating outcomes, where we will discuss about the knowledge and propaganda, and we will discuss about that there is very thin line between knowledge and propaganda, and we will discuss how can we compare. And for example, we need to know that the drugs that we will give for treating the patient because of the illness, this is one side of the news or one side of the story. But the other side of the story, that the availability of these drugs commonly in the society, they can lead the society, the people in the society, towards the negative effects of the drugs or misuse of the drug. So we need to understand that whether the drugs, the knowledge of the drug is important, whether we need to see that the propaganda behind the drugs is right or not, because I can think that the knowledge for the drugs is also as important. We know that drugs are not good for the health, and when we know that it's not good for the health, that sometimes people portray drugs as a propaganda tool and to depict the society and to avoid them. Yes, we know that they are not good for the health, but the knowledge is as important as to avoid them, because if we don't know the knowledge, we may get more curious. And if you read lot of research articles, they are supporting this evidence that people that have lack of knowledge, they have less knowledge, they are more curious, and then they more fall into this trap that I already mentioned before in one of the lectures, that it is a rat trap. So the knowledge is as important, but the propaganda is also going on about the drugs that is not good for the health. Yes, we know that it is not good for the health, but we must need to know that it has the good signs, it have the bad signs. The good signs are that it is the drugs that helpful in treating a lot of illness as well, and we discuss in our several lectures, even the psychoactive drugs, they are used in treating the criminals, and they are treating to prevent their psychiatric diseases. But in terms of the other context, when we see that people that misuse these drugs, and they also have their negative consequences on their mental health. So we know the both sides, we know the good, we know the bad ones. So we need to know that propaganda and education is very important. Knowledge and education is important, because if we have the knowledge, if we have the education, then if you are a social worker, if you are a psychologist, if you need to improve the society, then you must have the knowledge, so that you try to avoid, not only by you, but you also guide or give the guidance to the other society people or in the other communities, so that with your knowledge you able to help the other people, so that they will not able to, or they will not take these drugs. You must give or spread the awareness, and that awareness will able to help you and will able to help other people to avoid these drugs. So what is important then? Knowledge is important, because if you have a knowledge, number one, it's good for your own. In my know, I mentioned several times that in my class, every semester there are one or two or few students come in my class because they are curious. They need to know more about the drug, so that they will be more caution. And I mentioned in one of my lectures that in my last semester, I able to help one student that is very curious about these drugs, and she want to take that drugs, but with my lectures, with my class, she now more aware, and she now not thinking about these drugs, because the more you think, the more you fall toward these trap. And unfortunately we have not have live class in this semester, otherwise there are so many things that we can do, and I have lot of practice sessions and lot of activities that usually I do, but unfortunately because of our limitation I am unable to do. But I tell you my personal experience that there are some students that come in my class for just they are curious, and in my last semesters I able to help one student. So that's why the knowledge is as important, yes, not only for you to reduce the curiosity, to have more knowledge, but only for the other people, because this course, when we talk about drug, society and human behavior, we're talking about society as an overall perspective. And if obviously you go for either any medium, if you are from advertising or journalism, or you are from economics or finance, or in any field you want to go, if I miss any, even mathematics is very important part, because the role of society, the role of drugs in the society is commonly everywhere you can find. Even during MCU, I mentioned one time that alcohol is a big problem, and we have discussed that alcohol is a big issue in the current scenario. And what has happened at that time, that during this MCU period, there is an increase of the alcohol trend. So this subject is very important to give awareness, so that you can spread awareness to the other people. If you are working as a social worker, you must know the problems in the society. So the knowledge again is very important, and our topic outlines in today's lecture stated about defining goals and evaluating outcome. So if you know the knowledge, you can able to define the goals, or you can able to define the target population that you want to address, so that you prepare your outcomes according to that population. So the goal must be linked to the outcomes, and then we must aware of the propaganda against drugs as well, because some information are true, but they are not always bad. They have some other, there are two sides. So you know the one side, you must know the other side, and then you can decide. So this will be discussed, I already discussed in detail in even the topic outline. Then we will discuss about different type of prevention methods. I mentioned here the list of few methods like prevention program in school, knowledge, attitude, behavior model, effective education, anti-drug norms, development of social influence model. So we will discuss these all models in our today's lectures. Then we will discuss about peers, parents and community. How can we address, and what type of program we will develop for peer programs and parental programs and community programs. So this all topic is discussing about how we address this problem, So there are different ways to address the problem, and I mentioned in the topic outlines, and we will discuss in detail in our today's lecture. So when we talk about defining goals and evaluating outcomes, I already mentioned that education is as important as any other education you are taking in any field. Like if for example you want to fly the airplane, so you must know the tools required, knowledge required to fly that airplane. If you want to get the knowledge, you want to become a psychiatrist, you must know the tools. How can you evaluate the depression, anxiety and stress? Which tools will be used to identify the stress, anxiety, and then obviously you use that tool to identify, and then there are treatment plans that can help you to address these patients. So education is as important as in drug, society and human behavior. If you think that, or people think that if you take knowledge of certain thing, you may fall in trap. I don't think so, because education will help you to give you more awareness, more facts, and then you able to be more cautious and more prepared as if you don't have the knowledge. And if you see in our society, many people in many underdeveloping countries, people don't have the knowledge on that drugs, and they just take it because sometimes they like it. I already mentioned in that even not only developing countries but the developed countries, people get attracted to these drugs not only because people are curious, but sometimes even when they are taking these drugs, they get attracted. Like I discussed in one lecture about that children's, when they having a cough, so the doctor prescribe them cough syrups. Even the children, they take cough syrups. Cough syrups are of different kind, like strawberry flavors, banana flavors, orange flavor. So the pharmaceutical companies, they making different flavors. Their intention is actually to mask the taste of that drug or that syrup. But what happened that when a person, a child is taking this cough syrup, they get better, and then later on sometime, because the taste, the intention of that taste is to mask that taste, so that the bitter taste of the syrup will be reduced or eliminated. And so the intention is very important. But what happened that some people, they misuse them, and then with they misuse, they taking cough syrup as regularly they drinking like a syrups. Why? Because they get attracted to that cough syrup. So that's very important. That is dependence, and later on it can become addiction. So we need to understand that the knowledge or education is very important. And if we know that okay, you taking these things but they are not good for the health, even if you know like the taste, if you say that okay, I like the taste, I can try more, you can say that no, because if you don't need any drug, or you don't need any medicine, or if you don't have any cough, then why you should take? Then you must not take these drugs. So that is why it is very important to understand that we must have the knowledge, we must have the education, we must have the courage to say no, even if for example the peers, the people that are surrounding you, you have their friends, or you have the circle. And even at that context, we need to understand that the education is important. Then with that education, you have the responsibility. Nobody discuss about that thing. That is very important point, because for example, suppose you are studying in my class. Now we are in our last lecture, we are going to finish our topics. Now you have the knowledge. Now it is your responsibility as well, because you have the knowledge, you can help the other people with your knowledge. So the education is not only important for you, but the education is also important to give awareness to the other people. If even not, you are not working or you are not doing any job, that is very important. So this is one of the important thing, because why I am discussing, or why I am putting so much emphasis on education, because when you have the education, then you able to develop your goal, and then your goal must be synchronized with the outcome. So the education is an important factor to develop the goal, to define the goal, and then that goal will help you to determine the evaluation outcome, because the goal cannot be generalized for all societies or all communities. In our society or in our communities, there are different, so people are living, having their different mindset, and sometimes some societies or communities, they are very bound to religion as well. So the goal, or to define the goal and their outcome, cannot be generalized. We need to see that if you are talking about one community that is affecting the most with the drugs, what is the reason behind, or what are the motives for them to take these drugs. So we need to see, number one, population, which population get affected by this problem. Either they are living in the poverty, or it is not compulsory that they are poor. Sometimes rich spoiled brats, they also take these drugs just to waste their money. So when we talk about psychology or sociology or social studies, we need to see that we cannot generalize these contexts in every way. We need to see the population first, then we need to see the risk factors. We need to identify which factors are responsible to motivate them to take these drugs. If they are financially weak, then you can address in a different way. If they are financially no problem, then you need to address their mental status like depression, anxiety, stress. If the society or the people that have been suffering from these drugs because of they are students, like undergraduate students, we discussed several times that undergraduate students are also affected by these agents, then you need to see different context. So the context is very important to determine the goal, and then obviously the goal that you made, you need to see the outcomes, whether their outcomes must be in line with their goal, because obviously you decided the goal, but outcomes maybe sometimes occur differently. Then you need to find a reason that why this occur, and I already mentioned that the context is very important. You need to see people mentality, behavior as well, important. You need to understand sometimes the psychological perspective as well. So there are multiple factors that is very important to determine the goal. And obviously when we need to see the goal and outcome, the education is very important. You must have the education about the drugs, because not only the psychological or behavior aspects are important, but the nature of the drug is very important, because we discussed several classification of drugs, and every drugs is not same. They having their different characteristics. So we must need to know that why people taking codeine, cough syrup, why a person is taking LSDs or psychoactive drugs, why a person is addicted to opiates or morphine, why the psychoactive drugs is taken by people that want to experience the world, or just getting to reduce or to dissolve the ego. Why? So the important thing is that not only the psychological, not only the behavior aspect is important, but the nature of the drug is very important, because every drug have a different perspective and different nature. So maybe a person is either randomly take any drug, or you can say any junks, or a person is specifically taking some specific drug. That I already mentioned that some people have the perception that the psychoactive drugs is give them more creativity, which is not the fact actually. It just gives an illusion, it just gives an different perception, but it cannot improve or enhance the creativity. So you may find that maybe person is taking this drug because maybe he want to become more creative, or his thinking is his belief is like that. So the belief is very important, perception is important, social norms is also important factor to understand. So there are multiple factors, but I'm not going to go for detail because this is not relevant topic, or we're not going to go in detail in this slide. So my main perspective, or I explain in detail why, because education is important. We must have the knowledge about the drugs, because the nature of the drugs is different, and their behavior or their action on the behaviors is different. Number two, there is a propaganda and education. People think that drugs are not good, don't discuss about that drugs, because they can go to people to go to the negativity. But I talk about that drugs, the knowledge for a drug is important, so that you become a more awareful, more careful, more knowledgeable for doing different long life activities or different activities in your future commitments or endeavors. So that is important. We must not follow the propaganda. We must know the reality. We must know the truth. But we must know, we don't need to go to some people beliefs that somebody have, because they are not always true, because there is very thin line between, we can say that, truth, belief and knowledge. Knowledge is available everywhere. If you go somewhere, you go and learn something, you go to see some new words, you see some new signboards, you learn some new words. For example, I am not a native Malay speaking, so if I am not a native Malay speaker, so I go and I see different signboards and I learn some knowledge from the signboards. This is also a knowledge. Belief is sometimes prerequisite with with person having the religious factors. Some people, and not only religious factors, sometimes some social norms and religion make together to give some belief of certain thing, and that belief may not be true all the time, and that belief is also a part in the society. Then there is another thing that is lie, is the truth that come between the knowledge and then the belief. So we have on the left side is the knowledge, and we have the right side, we have the belief, and we have the center part, which is the truth, which can be discussed, that can be part of sometimes some of the belief, some section of the knowledge, and then make the truth. So again this is another topic we're not going to discuss in this lecture, but it is also very important to understand that the knowledge is important, and then we have to see. Then I already mentioned in detail about knowledge. We need to know the drugs, because every drug have their different actions and their effect or their impact on the behavior is important. And then the propaganda and education I explained in detail. So we must need to aware, we must need to see the propagandas. Like for example, I just give a simple example of the propaganda during the Second World War, or even before the Second World War. We know about the German history, and whenever we use the word propaganda, we always talk about Germany, especially the Hitler propaganda and their machinery about Jew community, and that propaganda is so much deadly that we all know what has happened. Then World War II happened, and so on. So propaganda is an important machinery for not only in terms of the drugs, but propaganda can be explained in terms of the people changing of their perception about something. So if for example there is one famous leader, or one certain leader is making a propaganda on certain community, certain population, and that propaganda may be not true, then what will happen? That propaganda, because if you keep putting something in someone's brain, then obviously at certain time, at certain you can say that certain part of the life, that become the part inside your brain. Because if somebody is feeding you something, that community, suppose any community, I'm not going to explain or any pointing any community, but in general context, that if someone pointing that certain community is not good, you keep feeding this information to the population, to the society, then what will happen after few times, maybe after certain years, that become part of your brain. And that actually, this is the very important thing, I think I tell you, in context of advertisement, not in context of the propaganda, but in context to understand that certain knowledge, if or certain information, that when somebody is feeding to people in the brain, at certain time that become factual for the person or the society at that level. And that obviously the propaganda is not true, is maybe is misleading, but because of the influence, because he or she have a high influence. And we know that social media influencers, they also sometimes people misuse them, and they can spread some misleading information. So that is the propaganda, and then nowadays the electronic media propaganda, social media propagandas. There are so many types. This is not our topic. That different people using, different leaders or different part of the world or society, they are using them for their own benefits and motives. So that's one of the section. But the problem is that propaganda sometimes it is important because when we don't talk about propaganda, when we talk about advertisement or just like marketing, the information, if I already mentioned that, if for example when we talk about anything you want to eat, for example you like someone burger or you like some food, you want to eat that food and you because of the taste. But sometimes what happened that not sometimes people take these junk food or burgers not because of the taste but because of the continuous message that hitting on their brain. Because when you see, you are students, people, everybody, social media, everybody is using the laptops, mobile in their hand every time, and they're watching a lot of advertisement. In 10 years or 20 years before, mobile is not there, so at that time TV is used in the advertisement and different advertisings people see in the television. But now mobile is every time on people's hands, so you can expose to advertisement are much more as compared to maybe in 20 years before, when the advertisement is only restricted to the billboards or is very restricted to television, which is not available or accessed commonly. But now because if one advertisement is hitting one person consecutively in their mind again and again, maybe if what happened at certain time you may not feel hungry, but you may want to take this burger or food or anything, and that is not explained in terms of propaganda, but that is explained in terms of the thing that hitting in the brain. So propaganda also work like similar way, that if somebody is pointing some society, community or some certain agent that it is not good, or if it hit continue, then what will happen, then it become part of your brain and you accept these thing and it may be false. So same like these sometime informations, that's why when the advertisement is going on or advertising, they strike person brain so that you intend to take this thing intentionally or unintentionally. I must say unintentionally in a better word, that people unintentionally then take these things. So that is very important. That is one section, that your brain is very important part, and I think you must need to control these things that sometimes can be mislead, not only in context of propaganda but in context that something if hit in your mind, you must have the courage, you have the control of yourself to say no. If you don't need, if you are not hungry, you must not take them. So this is a quite lengthy topic, but I only restrict in terms of the drugs. Drug is also presented as a propaganda, but drug is, I must say that the knowledge for a drug is not a propaganda, it's just for the information that is helpful for the other people.
You know there's substances out there that are really harmful to your brain and body.
That's true, but I would never try or take anything because I like myself exactly as I am. Hello and welcome to It's a Fact. I'm Nicholas.
And I'm Mala, and this is our dog Eddie.
Today we're talking about drug abuse.
Before we start, Nicholas, we need to talk about responsibility.
That's true. If you act responsibly and respect yourself and others, then you'll be polite, kind, and considerate in everything you do.
If you set a good example, you will influence your friends and classmates or peers.
And you'll also find that you have the confidence to express your opinions and will not be persuaded to do what you think is wrong.
By living responsibly, you will have the ability to make the right decision if you are ever exposed to drugs.
friend invites you to a party that is on at the same time as a cricket match you're playing in.
Clues before you choose.
All of the cricketers made a commitment to the team. The success of the team depends on all players. A good friend will understand your commitment. You chose to play cricket and then go to the party. You made the right choice. You're in the playground at school and a student pushes you off the swing.
Clues before you choose.
You know that behavior is against school rules. Your dad told you not to fight even if others want you to. Although upset, you realize the other student has a problem and not you. You chose to go to your teacher and explain what happened. You made the right choice. Your mom asks you to go to the market. On the way, you see friends who are smoking and they offer you a cigarette.
Clues before you choose.
You know that smoking is harmful. You remember it was hard for your uncle to quit. Although you want to impress your friends, you know smoking is wrong. You chose to say no thanks and continue with your errand. You made the right choice.
Acting responsibly and making the right choices makes you feel good about yourself.
And so you should. Everyone has the ability to do wonderful things, whether at school, at home, or in their community.
That's true, Marla. But in our next section, Sergeant Williams tells us about harmful substances that will prevent you from being the very best that you can be.
2 of the substances actually lessen your ability to be in control of your actions, but all 3 can be damaging to your body.
Good morning, class. Today we have a very special guest who has come to talk to us about substance abuse. Let's welcome Sergeant Williams of the Royal Barbados Police Force.
Good morning, Sergeant Williams.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Mrs. Burke, for that warm introduction. I have come today to talk to you about 3 harmful substances that you should avoid. I have brought with me a very special piece of chalk called Preston. We will begin by talking about alcohol. Alcohol affects both your brain and body, and because it goes straight into your bloodstream, it can damage every organ and cause diseases.
Excuse me, Sergeant Williams. My friend's father drinks a lot of alcohol, and I cannot understand him when he talks.
Well, that is because alcohol slurs your speech. It also affects your memory, coordination, and judgment. Does anyone know why alcohol is even more harmful to children and teenagers?
Yes, sir. Is it because we are young and still growing?
Yes, exactly. Your bodies are still developing. Remember, you're all below the legal drinking age, so if your friends or anyone else offers you alcohol, please say no thanks and walk away. Tobacco is another damaging substance. I would like one person to tell me if they know someone who smokes.
My dad smokes, but he is now in hospital, and the doctors have told him that the cigarettes are making him ill.
I hope your father gets better soon. Tobacco is harmful to your body. It can cause breathing problems and life-threatening conditions such as heart disease and lung cancer.
But why will my dad smoke when he knows it can make him sick?
The reason people like your father find it difficult to stop smoking is because tobacco contains an addictive substance called nicotine. Once your body becomes dependent on nicotine, it is then very difficult to stop using it.
Excuse me, Sergeant Williams, but why do people start smoking when they know that they may not be able to stop?
Well, some young people think their friends will be impressed, but they are really mistaken because most people don't want to be around somebody who is smoking. In fact, cigarette smoke contains many poisons.
Sergeant Williams, could I become ill if I'm around cigarette smoke a lot?
Yes, you can become ill from breathing other people's smoke. Smokers not only risk their own health, but also that of their friends and family. I would like now to talk to you about an illegal drug called marijuana. People who use marijuana have a higher risk of getting cancer as its smoke contains more cancer-causing chemicals than tobacco. Marijuana can be addictive and can lead to a loss of both concentration and short-term memory. Why do you think you should never get into a car with a driver who is intoxicated or has been smoking marijuana?
Sir, is it because the driver may crash their car?
Yes, that's right. The driver's coordination, reflexes, reaction time, and ability to judge speed and distances will be affected, and you could be putting yourself in danger. I would like to thank Mrs. Burke and all of you for having me here today, and I would like you to remember that using alcohol, tobacco, or marijuana will prevent you from becoming the very best that you can be. You are all able to do great things now and as you grow older, but only if you respect your brain and body by not using harmful substances. Come along, Preston. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, Sergeant Williams. It may feel difficult to overcome peer pressure and say no to drugs, but people will respect your choice and the strength you had shown for doing what you thought was right.
I agree. In fact, most people don't like the taste of alcohol or the experience of smoking, but they force themselves to do it.
We all have to make choices in our lives, from small choices to big decisions.
In our next section, you'll see that it really does matter how you approach a problem and how you think about it.
Think about it. Just think about it. Think about it. Just think about it. You're bright as a button and sharp as a pin. You know what you're after and how to begin. When faced with a problem, don't shudder and sigh. Hold your head up and let your mind fly. Take charge of the issue and turn it around. Give it perspective, flip it upside down. Draw your dilemma or write it all out. When you think of its opposite, do you sing or shout? You have your own value, you know where you stand. Does this issue conflict with what your conscience demand? You have a right to refuse and politely decline. Turn away and say no, it's your choice every time. But whatever you're feeling and as hard as it seems, this problem will end and it will all feel like a dream. You will be respected by your friends and your peers for the strength that you've shown in controlling your fear. You are in command of whatever you do, the decisions you make and the options you choose. This is such a good thing cause there's nobody like you. You're 1 in 7 billion and that's ever so cool. Think about it. Just think about it. Think about it. Just think about it.
It can be confusing being a child, but there are people in your home, your community, or at school who you can talk to.
Be proud of yourself for all the good that you've done and for the amazing things you will do.
To be the best that you can be, you must stay drug-free.
When we talk about prevention programs, we will sub-classify these prevention programs into primary prevention, into secondary prevention, and into tertiary prevention programs. Let's discuss one by one. So when we talk about primary prevention program, it is usually aimed as mainly on young people, on adolescents, that age between 12 to 18 years of age usually. And the primary prevention program is, I already mentioned a little bit, that it is focused on those children that are curious about the drugs, and the main thing is that to give awareness to that children that are more curious to take them or may have high risk of to take these drugs, so that they have no knowledge, so that they will not take them. For example, alcohol or simple drugs like marijuana or another weeds, different kind of weeds, that people are influenced not because of their society, but because sometimes we can say as a whole perspective, when you listen some word consecutively in your brain, you may automatically get curious. it is sometimes not linked to the society. Sometimes it is not like that. Peers, your friends, your family, maybe no one is involving with the drug, but you still are more curious. So why a person get curious? The answer is there because if some word hit on your mind consecutively, it automatically give you more curiosity to know about that information or to taste about that. So in the media, we will discuss our next lecture about the role of media. These drugs are keep hitting in the mind, and that's one of the reason that people get more curious, and then obviously then the primary prevention program come into action, so that we must inform about the knowledge about these drugs and the influence of the drugs on life, emotions and social relationship that I mentioned in the second point, that what will be the relationship of these drugs on our lives, how it can produce an impact. And we know that drugs are not good drugs, you need money to buy that drugs, so it affects on the life, especially the financial matters. Then when we talk about emotions, yes, it have an impact on the emotions as well, because I already mentioned different psychoactive drugs and they have an impact to enhance the emotions, like pleasure. Some people take these drugs because they want to enjoy or want to give more pleasure, and we discussed in our previous lectures in detail about emotions, and we discussed in detail. So we must need to educate them, we must need to inform them that these are not good. Emotions cannot be exploited with these drugs that can affect the life, because your emotions is not only yours, you are the part of the community. Maybe you are living with the friends, your family or your peers, so your emotions can influence other people. So we have to understand that we need to teach them that we need to control these things, and we cannot express our emotions, or we don't need high emotions in every time, because that pleasure later on can be maybe dangerous, because people always want to go more high and more in pleasure, and there is no ending in that context. So we need to see that we need to go for moderate behavior in our life, not to go for extreme behavior in the life, because extreme behaviors always have a negative impact. Even if somebody is angry, extreme angriness is dangerous because it could lead to violence. That is one of the factors. Because and extreme happiness is also sometimes some people are so happy that it could also lead to sometimes an unpleasurable experience, because at certain level, when you reach at the threshold level, what is meant by threshold level? At certain level that you get so enjoy, but then at certain level you get stagnant, you cannot get so high. Then what will happen? Then your brain started to get depressed, your depression or anxiety started to slow increase. So extreme pleasure will then later on at certain time we need to have can produce anxiety and depression. So that is very important, that they are correlated. The depression, anxiety and happiness, we have to understand they are linked to each other. So if so much happiness, yes, but they are certain level, and after certain level, if you are not getting so much happy and your expectation is not up to that level, then it can lead to anxiety initially, and then that anxiety then later on can go to depression, and then it can affect. So that is very important point, that we need to have the balance emotions in our life. Too much high angerness or too much high pleasure or too much high happiness is not always good for the health, and they must be a moderate in your life. And then the social relationship is also important, because drug have very strong impact on the relationships, especially social relationships. If someone get addicted to these drugs, what happen initially to that person if he take drugs? Number one, maybe the drug he is taking because of the certain family issue that he or she is facing. So we need to identify the program, especially when we're discussing about primary prevention program, that why a person is taking this drug. If there's a family issues, we need to solve that problem. Financial issues that affecting his life or her life, we need to solve that matter. Or we need to see that what is the reason behind that. If, for example, somebody is taking these drugs, we need to tell them that it can affect their social relationships, it can affect not only financially, but it can affect morally and other factors, and then we need to prepare or design our prevention program in such a way so that we help them in their lives, not only in their emotions, to make them balance or the real emotions that needs in their life. Like if you remember in our last few lectures before, when I gave you one such article about that, how they try to avoid the drug issue, and they make a room, a certain house, a kind of room for the addiction people that are addicted, so that room is contaminated free. So what you see in that video, if you remember, that there is a chessboard as well, and they are playing games. So that's actually that's a healthy emotions, that positive emotions that can help people in their life. So the environment is very important. So in that is an excellent example of prevention program that they are doing, because the people that are addicted, they are very vulnerable to blood-borne diseases like HIV or hepatitis. So they provide a clean environment, although they still are addicted, but they at least they are not exposing to get high life-threatening diseases. And then with the environment, like playing chess or playing game boards, can help them to improve their life to go back to the normal. So that is very important, and we need to not only, the important again thing is number one, that we don't not only need to know the education or knowledge about the drugs, but we need to know about that drug, how drug can influence in the life, emotion and social relationship, so that you design your prevention program according to the context that if you are working in an NGO or in healthcare organization, how you design that prevention program so that you help to specifically target specific community. So that is why that is very important, and especially primary prevention program is very helpful, especially for the young children. They are designed for especially young children that are more curious about these drugs.
How much do you know about drugs and drug abuse? In this video, we will discuss a few problem statements related to drugs and drug abuse and how we can better manage these issues. What you read from the internet may not always be the truth. Always verify the source of information when accessing online information on the effects of drugs. Cannabis is addictive. Research has shown that amongst those who used cannabis, about 1 in 10 will develop dependence. Smoking cannabis does not have medical value. Most medical bodies do not support smoking cannabis for medical application. Evidence for use of medical cannabis is inconclusive, and the US FDA has not approved the use of cannabis plant as medicine. Cannabis is harmless. This is false because findings have shown that cannabis use has been linked to anatomical and functional changes in the brain. It has also been linked to the development of serious mental illnesses such as schizophrenia. This is based on a literature review on cannabis conducted by a team of psychiatrists and researchers from the Institute of Mental Health, Singapore. CNB is seeing more cases of youths abusing drugs and introducing them to peers. What should you do when offered drugs from friends? Here are some ways you can effectively respond to peer pressure when it comes to drug influences. 1. Be bold and simply say no. 2. Suggest an alternative activity. Joining sports or other healthy group activities not only widens your social circle but also boosts your self-esteem. 3. Avoid the situations where you know people will be abusing drugs or sniffing glue. Choose your friends wisely and hang out with non-abusers. How can you tell if someone is abusing drugs? Here are some telltale signs of possible drug abuse. Seek help from an adult such as your teacher or school counselor if you know or suspect of anyone abusing drugs. Some countries have legalized or decriminalized the use of certain drugs such as cannabis. Will you be enticed to try drugs while overseas? While other countries may legalize the use of certain drugs such as cannabis, be informed that you're not barred from any penalties if you consume these drugs overseas. All Singaporeans or permanent residents found to have consumed illegal substances, even outside of Singapore, will face the same penalties as if the offence has been committed in Singapore. Drug abuse, be it abroad or at home, is not worth your time and health. You may have come across websites promoting sales of legal highs and new psychoactive substances. These products mimic the effects of illicit drugs such as cannabis, but are marketed as safe and legal. Would you believe that these substances are indeed safe for consumption and be tempted to try? Many of these NPS have been reported in overseas journals to have no licit medical use. Their abuse has also been linked to adverse physical and psychological reactions, including paranoia, seizures, hallucinations, and even death. As of 1st May 2016, over 100 NPS have been listed as Class A controlled drugs. Singapore adopts a zero-tolerance stance against drugs and have put in place a comprehensive approach to tackling drugs that reduces both drug demand and supply. Why do you think it's important that we continue to maintain a zero-tolerance stance against drugs? Our tough drug laws and effective enforcement keep Singapore streets largely free from drugs and crime and deter organized drug syndicates from operating in Singapore. Preventive drug education is the first line of defense in our overall drug control approach. The primary outcome is to prevent as many youths from drug abuse by reaching out to them with a range of PDE programs to raise their awareness on the harms of drug abuse as well as to build their resilience against drugs. Now that we have come to the end of this video, we hope that you're able to make the right choices in your life. You can always contact CNB's hotline at 1-800-325-6666 if you encounter any drug-related situations. Protect yourself and loved ones around you. Together, we can keep Singapore drug-free, where everyone can live, work and play safely.
So this is a picture about the curiosity and why we must need to aware about the drugs. Then we have the secondary prevention program, and what is the difference between primary prevention and secondary prevention? The main difference between primary and secondary is primary will be more children that have less knowledge, whereas secondary prevention is more people that are experienced, that are user experience. For example, alcohol, and people that are already experiencing substance abuse or they are already drinking alcohol, for example. And we must discuss in these secondary prevention program, they are experienced users, and then we need to give different information, because like for example, if you go to one person that drink maybe 10 and 20 alcohol glasses in one day, and you talk about okay, alcohol is not good for the health, you just give them information, will it produce an impact? No, because the person that is experienced user, he already have this knowledge, right? Yes, because they have the knowledge but they are still drinking, so the reasons behind that people will be different. So in the secondary prevention program, the main important thing is that the experienced users, they have the knowledge, so you cannot tell them the knowledge because they already have the knowledge. If you just tell them the knowledge, they will have no impact. So that is important, that you need to now design some different aspect. You need to design, like I mentioned, for example, responsible use of alcohol. Now you need to design certain things to tell them that you must drink, but you must drink responsible. You must not drink so many glasses of wine that at then certain level that you just hit your car in front to someone other car, or you just accidentally hit somebody, or you become violent because drinking alcohol. So you have to design now the other aspect, because knowledge they have, but now knowledge is not important. The more important thing is that how can you influence that people to drink responsibly. So that is why that we need to design the secondary prevention programs for experienced users that already been experienced. So if I ask that how can we design a program for especially the drinkers, especially that drink alcohol a lot, how can we design? So my answer is that we need to design in a way that we need to help them by understanding that you don't say that not take alcohol, because if you say that no, if you just immediately tell this thing to someone that don't drink alcohol, it will not affect in their brain. So you need to design that drink alcohol, but drink in a responsible way. And how can he drink or she drink? We already discussed in our lecture alcohol that the liquor concentration is very important. The more high concentration, the more stronger effect. So you can tell them that drink at certain level 4%. If somebody drink hard liquor like 20%, 30% or 50%, maybe you can ask them to drink alcohol but at less concentration, or the required number of time that a person is taking the alcohol, maybe a person taking 20-30 times, you must inform them to, or you must request them, or you must tell them to take less than the amount that a person is taking. So that is the way that is can helpful for these people that are taking these alcohol and or any other drugs that affecting their lives, because obviously their life is very important, and the high doses of alcohol and impact of these drugs can have a significant negative effect on their life. And we already discussed that certain level of alcohol can be even life threatening, like it can cause liver damage and liver diseases. So we need to see this thing, and we need to see in other context. Maybe you can tell to these people by talking about the adverse effect of drugs, the knowledge in the other sense, that you just tell them that drinking so much quantity can cause liver cancer. So that can produce an impact. Or for example, we need to effectively design some drug awareness campaign or alcohol awareness campaign to those people, for example different healthy walks, or a week or in a year or in a month you design some awareness walk about alcohol's negative effects. And sometimes it could be possible you go to certain societies that are taking these drugs a lot, especially alcohol a lot, and you only focus on specific people that are exposed to these alcohol or drugs. So these are the ways that can help you to give them more awareness. So instead of telling them not to take them, you must need to design, or you just say that the knowledge, sometimes the knowledge have not impact on them. You need to see the other thing that can help them. When we talk about the tertiary prevention program, the tertiary prevention program is specifically for those that are already taking the drugs, that already they having the withdrawal symptoms. We discussed in our previous lectures about withdrawal symptoms, so I'm not going to explain, but in simple terms that the adverse effects or the side effect of the drugs if a person is taking. And these tertiary programs are actually specially designed in the rehabilitation centers to prevent the relapse. Because if for example somebody is taking drugs and he or she go to this rehabilitation program, okay, after certain months he now not smoker, not drinking alcohol or not taking drugs, but after 2 or 3 months he again urged to take them again. So in that context, tertiary prevention program is important, because in that context we need to follow up these patients so that they may not go engage to these activities or these drugs again. So that's why we need to develop the follow-up program. We need to prevent the relapse. What is meant by relapse? That again the symptoms appear, the physical dependence or psychological dependence of the drugs, the sign and symptoms like anxiety, depression, or sometimes you can say shiverness, tremor, depending upon which drug is he or she is addicted to. We need to prevent that relapse, so that we need to keep monitor that to patients. We need to ask them to come regularly, to come in the clinics, so that we ask them their social status or mental status at that time. So we mentioned that the Institute of Medicine has proposed a program which is known as Continuum of Care. What is meant by Continuum of Care? Continuum meaning continue. The word comes from the term comes from the word continue. It means that providing a continuous effort to deal with these patients, so that if even they get better, they will not get again to fall in this trap again, or may not get influence again, or may not get desire or craving to take them again. So that is why they talk about continuous care, and then these patients require long-term prevention programs, which come under this classification, tertiary prevention program. Because if a person relapse and then they get addicted to this drug issue again, so that is why it is very important to understand that the relapse could be occur. And I will show you some videos today as well, that this is our last lecture, so these videos are some very emotional, but it is very important because people die from these relapses. And there are some cases that happen that people try to avoid that drugs, they go to rehabilitation centers, but after certain months they again taking these drugs, then they again go to rehabilitation centers where they go underwent to a treatment, and then after a certain time they again get better, but then again they get again addicted to these drugs. And what happened that at certain level patient die because of these drugs, because maybe what happened that when a person need that drug and he or she is not getting that drug, he can self-harm. So a number of suicidal cases found in patient that trying to or that are fighting against these drugs and they unable to survive. So I will share with you some videos regarding that, and you can see that how much important that is.
I think I was 12 when I first smoked pot, and then by age 15 I was smoking crack, and by 16 I was shooting heroin.
In between, she was popping pills.
Adderall, Ritalin, Vyvanse, Percocets. I don't know all the names of them because a lot of times I would just get handed bags of pills.
She went from a very happy, bubbly little girl to
really depressed, like very suicidal.
So it was a quick, dramatic, and rapid change.
Colina turned to drugs when her parents split up.
That's Dad snowboarding.
I think her starting in drugs and stuff was a way to sort of ease some of the pain that she was experiencing in her life.
I liked being numb.
Colina soon progressed to harder drugs.
I started shooting up when I was 15. I started using needles.
I didn't realize that people were like shooting up heroin in the Upper Valley, as a teenager.
There came a point where I wanted to stop and I couldn't.
Addiction specialists say family stress, problems at school, and a desire to fit in are all common triggers for teen drug abuse, leading to a vicious cycle of addiction.
They need the drug because they want to feel good, and if they don't get the drug, they feel bad, and so they have to kind of take it for both reasons, and then that's really when you see these addictions pick up the pace.
The first thing was I had to get her help.
That's when she began dialing hospitals and treatment centers.
I had to call about 400 places, making sure somebody will take her. You have to keep pushing until you get the help you need.
Colina entered her first drug rehab at age 15, quickly relapsed when a friend shot himself, and a year later suffered yet another blow when a girl she befriended suffered a fatal overdose.
Sit by your
Emotionally bruised and addicted to drugs, Kalina has been in and out of hospital emergency rooms multiple times.
She's been close to death so many times that as a parent, you don't want to see your child die. I've been in the emergency room. I've been with the police looking for her in the woods. I've been not knowing if she was dead or alive so many times that it just... There's a level of fear that I'm not sure will ever go away.
I've lost jobs. I've lost tons of money. I've burnt tons of bridges with family and with friends, and I lost confidence in myself. I lost respect for myself and my body.
Kalina has never lasted more than 3 months in recovery, but she says she takes it seriously now, especially with a baby on the way.
I've never given up hope that Kalina will be clean and that she'll be happy. And I feel like I would do anything to make that happen.
My mom never abandoned me. She always stuck by my side, and she didn't support it, but she didn't just leave me in the dust.
I think one of the most important things is not to give up hope on them.
It's a long road ahead for Kalina, and help is scarce. Only 1 in 10 who need treatment for addiction receive it.
I think society has to really think about investing in helping people, because everybody thinks it's somebody else until it's somebody in their own family.
Kalina's not alone. There are just lots of kids like her, and when they don't get help, they end up like a lot of her friends. They end up dead.
Please just open your eyes.
So when we talk about continuum of care, we need to know the 3 things: prevention, treatment, and maintenance. And when we talk about prevention, the important thing is that how can we prevent from these drugs, alcohol, anything that is addictive or dependence having the potential to produce an impact on the society. If, for example, suppose they are addicted to some drugs or something, then how we treat them. There are different drugs, like if you remember in one lecture I discussed about methadone is a drug that is alternative to heroin. If a person is addicted to heroin, we don't give them heroin, we give them methadone, which is similar to heroin but is less dangerous as compared to the heroin. So we already discussed one of the example like treatment programs. Then the maintenance program, which is that follow-up plans. We need to develop that follow-up plan so that the patient will come regularly after a couple of months, and we see the signs and symptoms if patient having, and we need to design the treatment. Maybe we need to reduce the dose of the drug, and then we need to monitor the patient signs and symptoms, or if it relapse occur or not occur, so we need to see them. When we talk about prevention efforts, it is very important that which society is suffering in that context. And I already mentioned in the initial introduction that the society, which population is affected by that is very important, and we need to develop that prevention program depending upon the community that is affecting by that. If you take a look on my pictures, you see on the left side is about children that make curious about these drugs. On the right side, there are certain community like certain Sikh communities, any ethnics. If you see the pictures like people that are living in the poverty or under poverty, or if you see on the right side again the picture with F are students that are suffering in their education, that are fighting, they are unable to study and they get low marks, and then they get involved with these drugs. So you can see that some anxiety or depression, or sometimes you can see a kid is smoking because maybe he get influenced by his peers. So we need to see that there is not possible that you can develop a program, a general program, because a general program or a universal program. I mentioned, if you see in this slide, there are 3 types of prevention. One is universal prevention, then selective prevention, and the third one is indicated prevention. So the universal prevention is just like the general information that given to the society. Like if you see World Health Organizations or different societies or different organizations in different parts of the world or in their different countries, they always promote the universal prevention program through the advertisement, through the television, through the newspapers, or through social media. They are promoting the general information about the drug abuse and drug awareness program. So that is universal for maybe for the whole country or for the whole world, for the whole society. But when we talk about selective prevention program or indicated prevention program, they are specifically designed to specific community, specific people that require attention, so that we educate them and we give them awareness. So we have to understand that universal program could be for all people. For example, all school children of the entire community, and we can give example. Or like I mentioned that the World Health Organization that prepared the universal prevention program. But when we talk about selective prevention program, we're talking about selective group. For example, students that are not academically well, they are academically poor, may in the neighbors or in the community, then we need, these are selective people. Or it could be indicated prevention program, especially for example a child who begins smoking at very young age, or an adult that get arrested because under the influence of the alcohol. So we need to see that what are the reasons why they are taking these drugs, and these universal prevention program or indicated or selective prevention program will be different. The program will be different, and then we need to treat them according to what is their need and how to solve that problem. It cannot be a same solution for all. So next is prevention program in the school. That is very important, because how can we solve these problems, especially in the schools? So the important thing when we see the prevention program in the school, the important thing is that model, which is the knowledge, attitude, behavior model. And the knowledge, attitude, behavior model consists of knowledge, then attitude, then skill and habit. These are all factors that make this model, which is known as knowledge, attitude, behavior model. So the knowledge is about people, the condition that we are aware of something happening. And I already mentioned in detail about the knowledge, why a person is taking the drugs, what is the reason behind. Then the attitude is important, because attitude have been linked to the feelings, emotions, belief on certain things and values about certain things. So the attitude is a combination of the feelings, emotions, beliefs, and then the third one is skill, because if someone is under the influence of that drugs or alcohol, maybe the ability to perform certain tasks will be not as accurate as under the life, under normal circumstances. So skills is very important. Then the habit, which is aspect of behavior that repeatedly or consistency is doing without any effort or conscious thought. Like some people switch on the light and switch off the light all the time. Some people have certain behaviors, like we discussed in our previous lecture about obsessive compulsive disorders. Sometimes that could be because of certain habit developed. Habit is simple example, like some people wake up early in the morning, some people sleep late in the morning. With the passage of time, their lifestyle or their sleeping mode will change. So that's also the part of the habit of the person. So that knowledge, attitude, behavior model consists of knowledge, attitude, skill and habit, and they are actually, the context or definition is very important. So we have to understand that thing, that the main important thing is that the use of illicit drugs actually in which society is usually common. So we found in a number of research articles that it is usually common in the middle class people, especially in 1960s, when the middle class people they are involved with these drugs. Maybe what happened because they are not getting adequate job, or for example they have not about drug education, and maybe they don't have the knowledge about that drugs. So what happened that in that time some anti-drug programs have been developed, so that we give them education and knowledge about these societies, especially middle class people, because they don't have the knowledge. so they are involving in these illegal or illicit drug activities. So with the improve of the anti-drug program, or with the improve of the knowledge when we give to them, they get more aware and then they are not get offenses. Or the second thing is that if they are jobless, we must provide them jobs, so that and by providing them the jobs, they may avoid these drugs and they may involve in more healthy activities. So we have to understand that the knowledge, attitude, behavior model was very much implemented in 1960s, but again it depends upon that what is the reason behind. So what happening with the passage of time, that the reasons become changed, because in 1970 what happened that now people have more knowledge about the drugs. People have the knowledge, but what happened, because of the knowledge that they have, they using that knowledge to take these drugs. So now the condition or the environment in that from 1960 to 1970 have been changed. So now they are taking, because they are more interested to learn about these drugs, and because of that cases maybe some of them they may involve to take these drugs, because now they have the knowledge, but the problem is that the knowledge that they have, they misusing that knowledge, and then they taking these drugs because of the more education they have. But again that's important, because now they have the education, but again people don't know that why they are taking them drugs. And I already discussed, maybe because of the anxiety or stress, because of certain reasons they taking these drugs, or because sometimes because they maybe get influenced by the media, that media is promoting these drugs at that time. So we need to, again the education is important, but now we need to give them the education of some other perspective, that is reason. Sometimes some people are just taking these drugs because they have the knowledge, but they don't know, but they don't have time, they don't have thing to do, so sometimes they just taking it. Even people giving them lot of warnings, even the drugs, they'll mention the label that without prescription it is not used, but they are taking these drugs because sometimes what happens, they get influenced by the media or education material that is involving to take them. So we have to understand that the knowledge with time changes, and then every era needs some specific reason to identify that why person is taking that drug. So we need to understand that these misuses is very important, and we need to see that reasons. Sometimes some people take because they want to get relaxation and they then take specific drugs. So we need to see the reasons, and we need to solve that reason, rather than we always knowledge is not as important, because knowledge with the reason of the knowledge is very important. So this is actually again explanation in this slide about more in detail about knowledge. Like I mentioned, knowledge about diabetes, cause of diabetes, prevalence of diabetes, how much percentage in diabetes occur in one society is important, and then prevention and treatment. So the knowledge must be important, that consists of different factors like what is required and how can we prevent. Then attitude is important, because we must know the information needed for loved ones for diagnosis, and how healthcare provider would help to treat diabetes, and how we help to treat especially black communities. So this is an example especially I put for the diabetes. As we know that diabetes is not a disease caused by the drug, but the knowledge, attitude and behavior in diabetes, you can see that knowledge, what is actually important in the knowledge must know that what is the cause, how can we prevent, how many people are suffering in certain population, and how can we prevent that disease in general context. And I can explain this in slide in about the diabetes as an example. Then attitudes, how healthcare provider can help especially specific community that are suffering from bad drugs, either it is white community or the black community or any other community. Then how can we improve the behaviors like physical activities like exercise or healthy diet that can help to improve their behaviors. So the question arises that do we need to educate the students about the drug? I already discussed in detail that yes, we need to educate them, and I already explained in detail why we need to educate them. So when we talk about education, we explain them in terms of different details like effective education. When we discuss that effective education, it explained subclassified as value clarification. And what is value clarification is actually the approach that making the assumption that what is lacking in drug using adolescents is in not factual information about the drug, but rather than the ability to make appropriate decision based on the information. So what actually value clarification is about, the perception about that drugs are sometimes non-factual information that is responsible for taking these drugs. And what we need to do for especially effective education, we need to design certain curriculum, and so that we must emphasize to tell about these facts that why these drugs are not good for the health. Teachers and must be developed and must need to develop certain situations, certain moral information and ethical dilemmas, so that people get more information. Like for example, in my class right now, I am teaching to you in this class, and for example, if I need to explain the value clarification, how can I explain to you? So what I am doing is to you in my class that I am presenting some videos, especially I am sharing some experience of some people, of some parents and families that suffer from these drug uses or drug misuses. So we need to design certain type of knowledge curriculum or certain type of curriculum or information, so that they may correct their information, and we need to reduce the falsifications or the false information that has been spread maybe somewhere from their peers. So we have to understand this thing, and this is one of the way, because in this way it could help to people, and then the effect will be very quickly. Because the problem in the value clarification as well, that when you give some scenarios and when you educate the people, you talk about, you share some experiences from the other people, then the people or the society or who is watching that videos or who is listening that information, he or she or they have the right, or they have the right to decide whether they need to take them or not to take them. So we need to give them the factual information, and we need to tell them, and then we let them decide whether they take or not to take. So that is very important when we talk about value clarification, and value clarification is very important. The other thing in effective education is alternative to drugs. We must give them the environment of providing other activities that can help to avoid that drug. I already mentioned, like exercises, relaxation exercises, meditation, you can say vigorous exercises, sporting activities, scuba driving, and different activities that are providing alternative happiness or alternative satisfaction to those societies that can help them to change their mind. So the alternative, there are a lot of alternatives can be possible, like I mentioned, scuba driving or snow skiing could be good alternative to the drugs. Then the third thing is about personal and social skills. So when we talk about personal and social skills, we need to understand that the main thing is that we must tell to the people, tell to the community that we must have the courage to say no. So we must we must need to develop, especially that people, the peers that maybe they may prone to take these drugs, you must give them information, or you must educate them that if somebody in your society is trying to take or trying to give you something, some drugs, you must have the courage to say no. And several studies indicated that adolescents who smoke, drink, or use of marijuana get lower grades, or less involved in sports activities. So what happened that we need to tell them that teaching students how to communicate with the other, we must give them success experiences approaches. For example, one exercise that has been used is having students operate at school stores by a group effort or frequently group meetings. So the group meeting or group discussions can help them to develop a sense of social and personal competence without using drugs. So the important thing in this, in social, especially in the social skills or personal skills, is to communicate with the people, with the society, so that they're able to help their problems with their community. But again, that is sometimes dangerous, because if the social skills are students involved with the people that are having bad intention, or their peers or society, people that are with their community is also taking that drug, maybe they get involved in bad activities. So it is very important that social communication is important, but people with that having good intention or that having the healthy behaviors, we need to engage them, involve them with these people, so that they can develop the good habits. So it is very important that communication is important, and communication skills help students especially to interact with them, and then they slowly get having knowledge, and then they can avoid. And the third one is the anti-drug norms. We will discuss anti-drug norms in our next slide. So when we talk about value clarification, the important thing is that we must know the value of life, and the ethics is very important. We need to educate the children, and then we can give them we can present them the knowledge, factual knowledge, and then let them decide whether they can what they decide. So that's, I mentioned here, that do children need to learn the moral and ethics from the parents and teachers if we compare children to decide by themselves. So there are two different approaches. Some people say that parents and teachers decide for their children, and we know that in different societies and different communities, parents and teachers are responsible to teach them the moral and ethics. But there are some other people in the section of the world that talking about that students give them more opportunity to decide by themselves. So both are actually exist in our society, and maybe in our class, maybe some people say that no, okay, parents and teacher need to decide the moral ethics, but some people disagree with that context and say that we can decide our own moral and ethics, because then at the end we are responsible what we do. So that these both philosophies work or coexist in life, and value clarification is important. And the best thing I already mentioned, that to tell them about the facts and let people decide what they want to do. Alternative to drugs, I already mentioned in details about the relaxation exercises, meditation, vigorous exercises, scuba driving would be good alternatives. Personal and social skills are important. I already mentioned about the communication and effective communication with the others. I already mentioned that you must say no to the people that are offering you some drugs. And when we talk about communication, there are 5-6 things I mentioned here, like listening, friendliness, open-mindedness, feedback, confidence, and non-verbal communication. So when we talk about communication, we need to see that by communicating with people can help to solve the problem. But the problem is, in this case, when we talk about personal and social skills, is the adaptation of that skills that people with similar mind, similar thought, and the environment. Because sometimes what happens that people may involve with these drugs because they communicate socially with people that are already drug addicts. So in that context, it could go backfire. So we have to understand that not only we need to see people, but we need to see the society or communication with people that are good in their behavior and deed, and that are not drug addict. So this is one of the things. And the second thing is that we mentioned that success experience. So we need to share the success of people that get success in their life. We need to share these knowledge. We need to share the experiences from the other people that can help to motivate them to avoid these drugs. And there are different success stories, and that people are suffering from these drugs, and then later on they get healthy. And we can show them different motivational videos. We can show to them, and then we can help them so that they can avoid these drugs. That's what they are different with. Anti-drug norms, I already mentioned in the previous context, which is very linked, like say no to drugs, and the drug-free schools must be exist in the life, because some countries like USA, the drug is commonly available, but still right now this is working on that. We need to develop drugs-free school zones so that we promote the healthy behaviors in the life. So the social influencer model consists of some factors such as training refusal skill. It consists of public commitment. It consists of countering advertising. It consists of normative education, and it consists of use of teen leader. Let's discuss one by one. Number one, training refusal skill actually is again the same thing, that we must have to teach to the students that we must say no to these drugs, and we must, for example, if someone is pressuring you or pushing you to take this drug, you must have the courage to say no. And I already mentioned in that previous slide that we must need to see, I know that people that are taking this drug, that why they take, because they don't want to lose their friends and they unable to say no, and then they take these drugs. So it is very important to say no to these drugs. When we talk about public commitments, we must have to understand that it could be possible, like spreading about negativity of the drug, or you can say that, like for example, I saw a number of videos. I give you the assignment about the drug of especially the smoking and smoking awareness, and I saw a couple of videos that are spreading the public message. I saw in your assignments as well, and I really impressed with your work, and where some students uses their friends and they promoting the message, say no to drugs. I saw few videos on that. So I found that this is the example of public commitment, where we're spreading the knowledge, we're spreading the information actually, by telling people that not to smoke the drugs. So when you spread the information to the society, to the public, not to smoke, so it automatically giving you insight as well as a strength to avoid these drugs. So the public commitment is very important, and I saw some of the videos regarding using similar public commitment as a tool for you for avoiding that. Then countering advertising, that is very important, because sometimes the advertising such as that advertisement that's showing you attractive sometimes pictures or the use of the models, they can attract people. So we have to counter that advertising, and we need to tell the hidden message. We need to tell them the hidden message, such as for example, cigarette smoking can cause cancer. So we need to tell them that cigarette smoking can cause bad breath, can cause yellow teeth, can cause shortness of breath. So by pointing the small hidden messages, we make solve that advertising issues, because advertising sometimes show with the lavish cars and then using of the model can attract their customers. But the other way to treat that is actually that when you tell the adverse effect of a drug, that it can cause cancer, it can cause bad breath or yellowing of the teeth. So this is another way. Then we need to talk about normative education, and we discussed in the previous slide as well about whether the parents or teacher need to decide, or the children decide by themselves. So that actually is known as normative education. We present the facts, and then with that facts, the children or the people or adolescent, they decide by themselves whether they need to take it or not. If for example everybody is doing it, attitude spread, that's not good, because everybody is doing it. If everybody want to fall into that trap, is a wisdom, is not a wisdom, I don't think so. So we need to see this fact, that give them the facts and then decide, not only that everybody is doing, but decide what is actually right. Then the use of teen leaders is also important way. How the use of teen leaders, I already discussed a little bit, that we must present the good messages. We must tell them that we must present some examples, set examples that presenting that they are smokers, but they leave their smoking, and they are spending their life in in a good way. So we must use some role models, in simple terms, with some good role models that can motivate them to avoid these drugs if they are addicted to these drugs. So this is another way that can help to solve that problem. So how peer and parents and community are important in smoking awareness program. We discussed a little bit before in our lecture that peer program is very important, and people get influence from their peers, and they, as I already discussed, that if some people are living or spending more time with their friends that smoke a lot, then it automatically, obviously, they may fall to this trap and they may trying these drugs. So in that case, that we need to see the peer influence, and we need to involve the peer participation. So how the peer program could be work? As peer influence is very important, number one is that people that are influenced from their peers, it is commonly, we know that they can be influenced from their peers. So what happened that we can do, that we can present significantly, we can develop certain groups, adult groups, that can emphasize on open discussion among that group of children or adolescents, and that discussion might focus on drug with a peer group discussing the dangerous effects or alternatives of the drugs. So we have to see the both aspect. Number one is that the peer influence is important. If someone is living with their peers that are taking these drugs, they may involve to take them. But on the other context, we must enhance the social communication and communication with people that talking about the dangerous effect of the drugs on the other side, so that they may get not only more information, but they try to avoid them. Then the peer participation program is also important, especially in high risk areas and where they are high risk of taking the drugs, especially in the lower mid income or people that are living in the poverty. We need to develop some peer participation program. Maybe what happened that if some families live in the poor areas, and the children may get involved with these drugs, so we must educate them. So if you see, there are different schools in the villages and in the poverty area where their children getting the information, education, not only by themselves but helping them for that they can learn some skill and they can earn some money for their family. So the peer participation program also important, especially in high risk area, especially people that are living under poverty, so that we must need to educate them and not only educate them but must provide them the skills, so that these skills will help them to earn some money for their livelihood. So that is very important and that can be helpful. So different community services is very important. Peer influence is very important. We need to help them. Then the parents and family programs are very important. And what is parents and family program? Not only we need to educate the child, but we need to educate the families as well. So when we talk about parent family programs, we need to see them that informational program is very important. What is meant by informational program? If we split a word, it is information program, informational program. So the word indicate that information, we giving parents about the information about the alcohol and drugs and their effects and side effects. Like I tell about information about different kind of drugs to you in the class. So we give the similar information just not only to the children but now to the parents as well, so that the parents must know the basic information about their uses and their effects. And then we need to tell them that parents need to see their children whether they are taking that drugs or they are looking that drugs. So for example, if parents suspect that his child may involve in these drugs, so the parents need to check his laptop or mobile whether what he is searching, what keywords the child is using to search the drugs, so that you get, or for example from the friends. So the parents need to be proactive from not only if a person is introvert, maybe always or she always sitting in her laptop and doing searching online. So in that context, you need to see her history and record and mobile to see whether he is looking these drugs. Or if a person is extrovert, or for example person is living or spending more time with their friends, then you need to see their friends as well. So that is very important, because information is very important. If the parents don't know that information, then how can they solve that problem? So that is very important. Secondly, the parenting skill is very important. If you see the next point, it is parenting skill, and we need to see that how an effective communication help to increase the interaction between parents and children, and that healthy interaction between children and their parents can help to decide or can improve in decision making, and can set the goal and can set the limit, and then how can a child can say no to these drugs. So the improving between or decreasing the communication gap, or in other words vice versa, improving the parenting skills can help the child to avoid these drugs. So it could be practice like role playing exercises is one of the famous examples, that role playing exercises can help their child to develop more strong relationship between their families. Then the parent support group is another important thing. We need to see that parents must need to see the other parents, or a group of parents must meet regularly to solve their problems. Sometimes what happens that something is happening in some certain society and parents don't know them. Maybe they are not aware of what is going on in their society. So in that case, the parents or group of parents in one society can often meet with the other parents regularly to solve the problem and to know and then to take the action as a communicative or collective action to solve that problem. So this is another way that can help to solve that problem. Then the family interaction approach is also important. Families need to work together and examine the issues that are occurring, for example the alcohol or drug abuse occurring, for example. So for the family interaction, especially when during exercise, or when, for example, sometimes some families are interacting in certain events, can help to solve the problems of their child, and that can help to improve the family communication, and then they can play as an important role or coordination in strengthening the knowledge and skills. So that's another way that can help to solve that problem. So these are parent sports group that can be helped. So the other way to effectively solve the problem, there are different community programs actually that are working in different parts of the world. This slide is actually giving you a list of the program that is effectively working in the United States, and I think there are dozens of different programs. I'm not going to go to name them and every countries have their different programs, especially drug awareness program, different sport groups that can help and that can increase the awareness about these drugs, so that can be helpful in treating the drugs. So thank you so much for today's lecture. I will show you some videos regarding this lecture, and then we moving towards the last lecture in our next lecture. Thank you so much.
She had a smile that would light up a room. She had a passion for basketball. Then she picked up golf, and she was a natural with that. She really enjoyed the game.
The one thing that caught us truly off guard going towards the end is we didn't realize how badly she felt about herself. Look at the pictures. Why would we think she had a self-esteem problem? But the fact of the matter is that was one of the major engines that drove her to areas where she really didn't need to go, didn't have to go.
My spoons started to disappear. And I'm not talking, one or two. It'd be like, okay, I have like 3 spoons left.
And I remember I had $150 some in my wallet. When I went to pay that, I had $75. And of course she started crying. And yes, I came down. Yes, I took your credit card. Yes, I used it.
And I remember going to court the next day and you know, beautiful Marin, and then bringing her in, shackles on her ankles in these prison uniform. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, how did we get here? I was just numb.
She needed the money to pay some people back, and she needed the money to trade the gas for the heroin.
If you would have asked us, what do you know about heroin? I would have said a street drug, a junkie's drug. You know, not something that you hear about on TV. It's not something that you would find in a community like Pickerington or any suburb. I mean, every day was that we have to keep her alive. We have to save her. If she said she was going to a meeting, I would follow ahead of time and sit in the parking lot and see her walk in, because I could breathe again, because she showed up. We got one more day. She's sober, one more day. She never even had a car, but she still found a way to get it because they would just bring it to the house when we were sleeping.
I remember walking into the apartment, and I've never heard such a horrendous scream in all my life. When I went up and walked through that bathroom door and saw him there holding my daughter, I knew immediately she'd passed away.
I know she really wanted to make it. And I know she doesn't want to see any other family go through what we have gone through. And I know she wants me to talk about it. And I found her journal that I bought for her. In her journal, she wrote a goodbye letter to heroin. Dear heroin, before I met you, I was full of life, at least from what I thought. But then problems started coming my way that gave me the excuse to meet you. It was like love at first sight. Not only did you do things for me, but boy, did I do things for you. I lied to my family, friends, and even more importantly, I lied to myself. I would steal and cheat for you. I would risk my freedom and my life for you. But our relationship went to hell when the first and last time you really almost took me away forever. You had me for 7 minutes. I won this battle, and I will never have to suffer again. Sincerely, your worst enemy, Marin Briggs. She still went back to it. That it was still because of the grip it had on her.
Do I miss her every day? Oh, sure.
We can't bring her back, and we can't go back. But if we can help other people by telling our story, then that's what we have to do.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved